We have all had painful events in our lives that can lead to depression, anxiety, addiction, or broken relationships. But here's a secret. It is not about what happened to us that causes suffering. It's the stories we believe about ourselves. Join us as we shine light on how to rewrite our stories, avoid the shadows of shame, and travel along the pathway to joy, love, and connection. It's the Finding Peace podcast with your host, Amazon best-selling author, Troy L. Love.
I'm standing along the bank of the Colorado River. The morning sun is rising above the horizon, turning the speckled clouds across the sky a fusion of pinks, oranges, and purples. I'm standing in soft sand, the kind that billows up into my face at the slightest movement of my feet. And I'm holding 2 5-gallon buckets. I'm listening to Joe, a Native American of the Quechan tribe on whose land we are standing, as he has explained that several months ago, over 200 youth from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints helped plant hundreds of indigenous trees all along the riverbank to help beautify and preserve the land. The challenge was now that the summer is approaching and temperatures can rise to nearly 120 degrees Fahrenheit, there was concern that the trees might not get enough water. If they could just make it through the season, chances would be that the root system would go deep enough that by the next year, the trees would be able to survive. But for now, there was a need to get the water from the river to each one of the trees. And so that's why I am holding 2 5-gallon buckets. Joe is showing us how to reach the buckets into the river and pull them out without ourselves falling into the water and getting wet. And then we're supposed to carry the buckets of water to the trees, some of which are maybe an acre away from the river. Joe suggests that when we get to the tree and as we're watering the tree, that maybe we will want to talk to the tree. They are living things, he said. Encourage them with kind words. Cheer them on. Shamefully, I roll my eyes. I was here at the request of my wife, and I had about 10 other things that I thought I could be doing on a Saturday morning beside carrying water to some trees. But I'm not one to complain, at least out loud anyway, so I dipped my buckets into the water and I started to walk. The water splashed all over my pants and my shoes, getting them all muddy. My arms started to ache as I'm carrying the buckets of water nearly 50 yards to the farthest tree. And I thought to myself, there has got to be a better way of doing this. And then my ethnocentrism kicked in, and I started imagining how we could dig lines for a beautiful sprinkler system, or we could hire a big water truck with gigantic wheels to drive along and spray all the trees with water. But then I noticed some young men laughing and singing as they carried their buckets of water to the trees. They had smiles on their faces. And I realized I did not. Immediately, I recognized that my shadows of shame were out. The impotent one was saying, "This is too hard. Why are we doing this anyway? It's not going to make any bit of a difference. These trees are probably going to just die anyway. This is so stupid." The rebel, you could be doing something else right now. You could be mowing your own lawn or doing the laundry. I don't know why you are doing this. And the judge, you think you know better, don't you? You think you know how to do everything better. Look at those young men having a good time. Why aren't you smiling like them? You should be happier. You should be smiling and doing a service. Don't you know you are doing something good for the community? There is something seriously wrong with you. As I carried the water, the voices got louder. The more that the water splashed on my shoes, creating sand into muddy cement that weighed down my feet, they got louder. And then I arrived at the tree. Calling it a tree was being generous. It really was just a twig sticking out of the ground. And I realized, as this stick is sticking out of the ground, that it needed me. It needed what I had to offer right now. And so I poured the first bucket of water out into the hollowed out area around the tree, and then I poured the second bucket of water. And then I heard something that I realized were words coming out of my mouth. "Hey, little tree, I have some water for you. I believe in you, little tree. You have what it takes. I know it's hot out here, but by this time next year, you will have grown so much. You will have grown branches and will be able to provide shade. You will provide food and shelter for the animals and the birds. Those who wander here will see your beauty and how you contribute to the beauty of this entire area. You can do it, little tree. I love you." And I found myself smiling as I returned to the river to fill my buckets with more water. As I thought about the question of the podcast, I realized that the question for this podcast is really a question for you. This is the parable of the water buckets. What is the lesson that you draw? I would love to hear what comes up for you. So send me an email at troy@troylove.com, or if you see the link to this on social media, share your lesson on social media as a post, or maybe just share it with a friend. Have you had moments like this when your shadows of shame just hijack your experience and prevent you from really having a wonderful, joyful experience because they just beat you up so much? And then there's a moment, a brief moment, a moment that maybe only occurs within a matter of seconds that changes everything. What are some of those moments for you?
You've been listening to the Finding Peace podcast. If you loved the show or want to ask a question, let us know by going to troylove.com. There, you can also learn about the Finding Peace 5-Day Challenge. Remember to subscribe to this podcast so you won't miss the next episode. And if you are listening on iTunes, please give us a 5-star rating. It helps other people find this podcast more easily. Thank you for spending part of your journey with us. Copyright Finding Peace Consulting.